We have an active week full of planetary transits. In this week's astrology, Venus shifts from Libra to Scorpio, intensifying our urge for deeper connections. Mercury's entering Libra, which will encourage us to make more of a concerted effort to meet others halfway. Saturn and Pluto are making their second semi-sextile for 2024, which will help us look at where we can strive for more in our lives and also lay down a better foundation. And it's a busy week for Mercury and Venus transits, creating a need for social exchanges and romance. We have quite an interesting variety of transits this week, and the vibes on the graph are showing that mixture. Imagination and confusion will last until the 25th and connect with psychic, mental, solitude, and ambitious vibes. Because this happens to be a mixed bag week, we might be more sensitive to energies than typical. We might feel more introspective. A lot of that has to do with Mercury and Neptune making an opposition. We've got some Neptunian activity and mixed with Mercury in a hard transit. And generally when that happens, our psychic energy is ramped up, sometimes for great things and sometimes for uncomfortable things, leading to moments where we need to be more introspective and just reflect on what might be going on. But we might also feel motivated to do our own thing and tackle some of our problems and get a clear vision for what our goals are going to be. There's a smidge of emotional sensitivity on the 26th, leading to something where we might feel edgy about things or just touchier than usual. This week has got some stuff to it that's a little bit prickly and also argumentative in some sort of way. Then the tone shifts a bit with the 28th to the 29th, where we have good luck, ambition, and yes, some solitude will be present. However, because of some of the transits by the end of the week, we may feel like our moods are starting to improve. We may feel more like fighting off the need to just be to ourselves and getting ourselves back out there, just being more social. Also, there's some Venus-Jupiter stuff, hard aspect, but it may put us in a flirty mood as well. Over the top, sure, but flirty nonetheless. So yeah, we basically have another colorful week. Let's look at these next bunch of days and see what we can expect. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps this channel grow. Also, if you're looking for a natal chart reading or intuitive coaching, the links will be in the description box below. And if you'd like to support the work of this channel, you could do so by buying me a fresh cup of coffee. The link will be in the description box below as well. Monday brings in a sign change that could give us the urge to examine the things in our relationships that are seemingly hidden or we're just needing to understand on a deeper level. Venus is going into Scorpio, which will shift the tone of Libra's easy breezy, balanced, harmonious sort of vibe to one that goes deep beneath the surface and takes its relationships very seriously. So this energy helps us look at Venusian things more seriously, especially concerning our relationships, our financial situations, and what again goes deep beneath the surface of these things. And this will also transfer into what we enjoy as well. It may take a more serious tone to it. And for this reason, Venus happens to be in a condition called detriment when it's in Scorpio, because Venus is about the carefree things in our lives. Venus is about enjoying ourselves. Venus is about not really going beneath the surface and keeping things tranquil, keeping things very chill, and just not allowing things to ruffle our feathers so easily. Another reason for this is Scorpio is the opposite of Taurus and happens to be a Venus-ruled sign, which is all about taking a softer approach in life and enjoying life's pleasures and not focusing on the intense aspects of life, because it completely harshes our mellow. And in that Taurian energy, we really want to stay in our comfort zone. And this is why a pairing like this can run into snags. This is why this pairing is in detriment, because of the Taurian themes, but also the way Venus operates. And with Scorpionic energy paired with this, we're not trying to ignore the stuff that's been swept under the rug, which can be very uncomfortable for a planet that's all about pleasure. But as I always say, when we run into these essential dignity situations where a planet might be in fall and detriment, does that mean we're going to have a horrible time in this? No, absolutely not. It just means it's a period where we might run into some snags and we may find ourselves getting to the bottom of things, good, uncomfortable, or indifferent. Energy like this may not have us focusing on the sweet spots, but it will help us fixate on what brings us security. Venus paired with Scorpio gives us the perfect excuse to delve deep into areas of our lives we typically ignore or ordinarily just avoid. Even if they're not so harsh, it may be that we just don't have the bandwidth to focus on something so deep or something and so profound. But with this, we'll be more in tune to our emotions, our intuition, resulting in seeing things that maybe we just didn't notice because, again, maybe we just didn't have the time to really think about it. So this could be a stage where we're seeing the raw truth about love, money, our close one-on-one unions that may need to go under the microscope for the moment. Maybe it's more or less so we can get to the next level on these things. Maybe it's because we might need to back off of some of these things. Maybe it's because we need to understand how someone operates, again, good, uncomfortable, and indifferent, or we're just trying to delve deep to see exactly what might be the best solution for us in terms of our finances or professional life. So with this, when it comes down to relationships, the romantic ones, this may be a time where we're slowing down and considering if this person is going to get serious with us, if this person is going to be there for the long haul, because we could find ourselves craving devotion more typical than usual. In Scorpionic energy, it's about that. It's about melding with someone on a deep and serious level, and knowing that you can trust that person with your emotions. This could also help us in terms of taking our time because of those reasons. In other words, this is a very apprehensive energy, and so we may feel like it's time to step back and let others prove that they're worth our time and that we can trust them with our heart. And this can specifically be for people who are single, or it could be with someone who's in the dating phases of a relationship or in a relationship where they're needing to take a step back and consider if this is going to be a long haul situation, and one where you feel like you can develop trust for this person or even regain it if you feel like it's been lost. For our close one-on-one unions and a social level, these energies aren't as social as most, and here's what I mean by that. You might feel more comfortable at this time with a select few of people rather than a huge entourage. You may be more focused on your closer relationships and having your one-on-one hangouts than being with a big group of people at this point in time. An energy like this can help us delve deep and evaluate if that's the type of social life we want, if that's the type of platonic relationships we want. Do we want to be in the big group, or do we want to keep our circle small? Is it a time to add the people that we trust, or is it a time to weed out the ones that are unscrupulous in some sort of way? But whatever the case may be, when we are socializing, whether it be platonic or romantic, we're going to need profound conversations and situations. So anything that's superficial, lacks depth, we may not feel as interested in as we typically do. And Venus is also about what we enjoy and what we consider fun. So maybe we'll be looking for more Scorpionic things to do. I mean, we're coming into October, and so I can't think of a perfect time for this transit than spooky season, because this may be a time where you're more interested in going to haunted tours or escape rooms or listening to true crime podcasts, or going out to the movies to see a suspense or horror film or psychological thriller of sorts. Energy like this can really ramp up having fun with the serious things in life. Financially, this could be a time where we're taking a deep look at what we can do to improve that. This could be a time where we're looking to build up more security. Maybe we're feeling very shaky, maybe we're feeling very nervous or scared about our financial situation, and maybe there might not be a problem, but we're wanting more for ourselves, and we're wanting someone that's going to take care of us for the long haul. So this could be a time to get really serious about our career. Maybe it's revamping something in our career. Maybe it's taking a deep look at what we truly want and then coming up with a strategy so we can transform our circumstances and have more of a secure financial future. But of course, there is a lower expression, as there is anytime a planet changes signs, and this one really revs up the intensity when it comes down to those things. And so we might find ourselves in situations, let's just say love life wise, where maybe we have a crush on someone, and sometimes within this energy that crush can be more enunciated than typical, so we might find ourselves fixating a little longer than we typically do when we're just meeting someone, which sure, that happens, but it can get extra revved up in this energy. We need to be aware of being overly suspicious in our one-on-one relationships and not allowing jealousy or pettiness to come through, or retaliatory energy when it comes down to things, because this can intensify that feeling of being slighted and then wanting to get someone back for it. The feeling of being scorned can feel more intense than typical, and so we really need to check ourselves if we're finding ourselves getting out of control and doing things that are very much out of character. Fear is another thing that can come up in this energy that we need to be aware of, like I was mentioning earlier with finances, and also with being so apprehensive that you avoid getting your emotions tied into a relationship of any kind. So we really need to be careful about closing ourselves off to all these situations because we're so fearful of what might happen, or getting into worst case scenario thinking. So let's use this energy for all of its advantages and really try to be mindful for the other ones, because they can be extra intense. And also, Venus is going to make a bunch of alignments this week as it's entering Scorpio. The first one it's going to connect with is Saturn, and this may cause us to focus on situations where we feel constrained in relationships. And so if we're feeling limited in a relationship situation, this may be a time to examine that and see what we can do in order to get out of those limits. Or a relationship that lacks vulnerability, warmth, passion, and all those other things. By Wednesday, Venus is going to make a sextile with the Sun, which is lighter. The next two alignments that Venus is going to be making is lighter, especially with the Jupiter stuff. Yes, these are considered hard alignments, but with the Sun and Jupiter, it tends to not be harsh in the sense of being argumentative, but more so in overdoing it. With the Sun and Venus making this connection, we need to be aware of seeking out an ego boost and then getting upset when we don't get what we want, especially with our close relationships. Then with the Jupiter stuff, and we'll be feeling a lot of this over the weekend too, and not just Thursday, we need to be aware of overindulgence, and that could be in relationships, needing over-the-top displays of affection, needing a lot of drama in relationships. Also, just the overindulgence when it comes down to the finer things in life, spending, sweet things, drinking, stimulants, and anything that causes us to feel good. Nothing wrong with seeking feel-good things, but at the same time, when this energy comes in, it causes us to rev up a little bit more than typical and overdo it. The 24th and 25th bring us two Mercury alignments that are not like the other. Mercury is going to make a harmonious alignment with Uranus, but it's also going to make an opposition with Neptune. And so somehow within that 24-hour span, I would say give this about maybe a good 48 hours actually, we may feel like one moment we're clear about things and the next moment we're in a mental fog. So on that day with Uranus, the 24th, we may feel sharper than typical. We may feel like we're finding solutions to problems that maybe eluded us for a while. We could feel like we have the bandwidth to communicate with others, even with that solitude energy. And you know, that may go back and forth. We may have our moments where we feel social, but we also may have our moments where we feel like we need a little bit of space, or we just need a little bit of time to regenerate and rejuvenate our energy, especially with that Mercury Neptune stuff that's kind of coming up within that next day. We'll be already feeling some of that energy, but our level of awareness will be on another level with these two energies happening at the same time, whereas we may feel left brain dominant on one hand and coming up with different concepts and having a lot of breakthroughs. And then on the other hand, we may have a lot of intuitive hits because of the Neptunian stuff that's going on, bringing out sudden bursts of creativity all around. Of course, the downside to the Mercury opposition Neptune thing can be that fog that we get. Yes, we're feeling sensitive to energies and we're feeling more intuitive than typical. We're feeling more psychic than typical. However, if we're having moments where we can't decipher certain things, especially if we're trying to decipher hunches that seem like they're not grounded in reality, we need to be careful with that. There's also communication. The communication on the Uranus side is excellent. However, with that Neptunian stuff, we just need to be aware of those who have very shadowy intentions and are very vague and purposely withholding information just so they can gain leverage for whatever it is they're trying to gain. So just something to be aware of, because these two feelings are very different and can make for a time where we feel very up and down. On top of that, the 25th still carries some energies that are really uncomfortable. So not only do we have that Mercury opposition to Neptune, Saturn's making a semi-square to Pluto, and Mars and Uranus are in a semi-square as well, making for quite an uncomfortable day. Let's hope we're feeling some mitigation from that Mercury-Uranus situation and the other stuff that's coming in front of it around the 26th, which will be Mercury going into Libra and also Mercury making a trine with Pluto. But Wednesday brings in the second transit between Saturn and Pluto, which, even though it's a complex alignment, it can help us have a better understanding of how to make something that's long-lasting in our lives. The first one of these we had was back on May 6th of this year, and now we have the second one. We're also going to get a third at the beginning of 2025 as well. But what makes this so important is this does tie into the Saturn-Pluto cycle. This ties into some of the first alignments that we're getting visibility on since that conjunction back in 2020. One of the things with this, though, on a personal level, some of the progress that we're trying to make through this may not be outward. It may be more internalized since this is a semisquare. This also happened when we had the semi-sextile with these planets as well. But this can help us take a step back and reflect more on what we want that's going to make an impact on our lives. And once we get an understanding of how to formulate a plan with this, we may develop strategies and take action on whatever goals we have in motion or goals that we would like to have in motion. With this, we may be considering the areas of our life that we need to transform in order to be more productive and to improve our circumstances. We may feel compelled to even explore certain things that maybe we wouldn't take a look at. We might be taking more of a deep dive on situations that we just skimmed the surface on. And so this could be a time to really look at what it's going to take to transform to get where we need to get, regardless if it requires us to work harder and more diligently than we previously have. Another thing with this energy is it can help us in terms of becoming more disciplined and eliminating things that waste our time. And this can also translate into having a little more endurance and stamina to take care of demanding things so that way we can have what we want down the road. On a more stressful level of this transit, this may reveal where we need to let go of things that limit us. And so that can make things sobering, especially if we had our hopes up about something and now we're realizing that it's causing us to be blocked rather than making progress. This could be a time where we feel a little more gloomier than typical because we just aren't making the progress we were hoping for with certain things. So this does carry with it a despondent feeling to it. The next one we're going to get of these is January 26th of 2025. After that, we won't see this configuration again until February 10th of 2049. The 25th continues its weird tone with Mars making a semi-square to Uranus, which can bring up sudden agitation. So with this energy, we need to be aware of acting hastily or doing things because we want it now. This revs up impulsivity, and then with that Mercury opposing Neptune situation, impulsive decisions are not advised. They're so ill-advised. Impulsive decisions is one of those things where sometimes, yeah, you do have to make an impulsive decision. But with energy like this going on and then Saturn making a semi-square to Pluto, we may get into trouble with energy in that way. And by in that way, with the Mercury opposed Neptune situation, we may be so foggy and we may hope for something so badly, but we can't wait for it and find ourselves in a blunder with that Saturn Pluto stuff. If we're rushing and pushing our luck, we may end up having some consequences with that energy. And so this Mars stuff with Uranus can really rev up the need to get our way. This also can rev up situations that are very argumentative. So that's another area where it's best to not engage with people who are throwing their weight around or even pushing our own luck. And so I'd say with this, definitely take your time when doing tasks because this can be a bit accident prone. There's a little bit of carelessness within this energy and taking big risks with this energy. And so that's something else we need to be aware of because this energy leads to a lot of backfiring. At least by the 26th, and as we're just feeling some of the vibes of the weekend, Mercury's entering Libra, and there's also going to be a trine with Pluto. Mercury's going to make a trine with Pluto, and it's going to really help soften things and help us regain our focus on what needs to be focused on. So now Mercury is shifting out of its home sign of Virgo and entering Libra, and that's going to shift the approach from a more focused tone to a diplomatic and delightful vibe. And so now that this planet's going to be transiting through Libra, some of the ways we decide to communicate with others, process data, how our minds work, our thinking, how we hear things, is going to get more Libran in its nature, which will help our minds focus on relationships, fairness, and ways to incorporate beauty and aesthetics in our lives. Energy like this is going to rev up the urge to make concessions for people in our lives because doing what's fair becomes such a must in Libran energy. Our minds will be focused on reciprocity when it comes down to our one-on-one relationships. So this could be a time to consider if we're getting that and if there is any fairness within these close unions that we have. Energy like this also has us seeking stimulation through these relationships. It can also help us in terms of feeling more stimulated when it comes down to creativity. And this could be like immersing ourselves in art, immersing ourselves in beauty. And also, even if we're dealing with Mercury, which is not a planet of thinking of romance, this could also help us seek out stimulating conversations that are flirtatious. One of the other things with this energy too is if it's been an intense time, which actually, yeah, sure, it's been an intense time considering the transits that we've had. This could be a period where we're making peace. This could be a period where we're finding ourselves in a place where we're ready to diffuse any drama in our lives because we're just looking for harmony at this point and to let go of things that disrupt the flow in our lives. Of course, there's a lower vibration to this, like there is anytime a planet changes signs, and even though this is all about harmony, it still has its things about it. The not so positive side of Libra is trying to keep the peace for the sake of keeping the peace. And even though that all sounds nice, a lot of the times what ends up happening is it creates built up resentment because we're not advocating for ourselves, we're not speaking up about injustices, we're not doing what truly makes us happy, and we're so concerned with making someone else comfortable that we neglect our own needs. And so some of this stuff can come up, and it's good that it comes up, but a lot of the times in this energy it kind of spills over like a pressure cooker when it does finally come up. So we might see situations where we're dealing with that. Also, another negative way this can show up is through covert aggression, where there's a lot of calculated and passive aggressive stuff going on to even the score, which is also another problematic tone within Libra energy, is where it's seeking balance, and sometimes that balance can be one-sided, and so we may run into situations with people who are trying to swing the scales in their favor because the only piece they're concerned with is their own. But just as Mercury is going into Libra, it's going to make this lovely trine with Pluto that can help us in terms of having more clear and profound conversations. And so if we've been wanting something with more depth than we've had for a while in terms of our communication, this is going to bring us the types of conversations we want, the interactions we want. This is also going to help us in terms of seeking out mental stimulation, whether that be through our relationships or through us just diving into topics that we want to research or understand, or possibly finding ourselves sinking into a very intriguing documentary of sorts. Also, this is excellent for getting to the bottom of things. And so if there was a situation we wanted to solve, this may be a time where we're having that breakthrough moment and just understanding something that seemed hidden from us. And that doesn't have to be awkward, uncomfortable, or bad. That can actually be something where it's just like, oh yes, finally I get it and I understand it. Or finding something that maybe was missing for a while. Maybe we finally have the bandwidth to understand where we might have placed something. And so it might be something good that was hidden from our view that we potentially stumble upon with this energy. So yeah, this was quite the mixed bag week. I mean, that one day, the 25th, is very concentrated with the heaviest energy, but for the most part, this week does round out with some really nice things. Anyway, I hope you all have the best week ever. Later, and see you in the next episode.